What's happening, guys? John Hendricks here for Boot Crew Media. Coming at you to present today's edition of The Drive, presented by Royal Honda. Well, look, we just got our first glance of the Saints at OTAs, and obviously there's a lot of things to talk about here. I think the first thing is obviously you want to look at somewhat the attendance. And what, again, like we talked in the last video, some of the things to remember, this is strictly voluntary, so there's no real need to say, oh my gosh, these players weren't here in attendance, and that's a reason for us to cause concern. What is a cause for concern, or what some of the things that you might want to take away, is the fact that Michael Thomas wasn't here. Now, Dennis Allen was asked after practice just kind of where he's at, and he said he's not ready yet. So we should be able to expect him for training camp, but obviously a little bit of concern there with Michael Thomas. I think he's going to be perfectly fine, but just not having him out there to work with Jameis Winston, who was there, and obviously he talked about his importance of just being out on the field because he's been so many months removed since he's had his ACL injury. And look, he kind of described it a little bit to us. He said his ACL is good, his MCL is good. He just wants to make sure his meniscus is good to go, and that's kind of where he's out. You know, he's wearing a brace at practice, making some good throws, but obviously is still a little off just because he can't sit there and he can't plant with that leg that he wants to. So look, he's going to be just fine. As far as other guys that were in attendance, you know, guys like Marcus Davenport, Peyton Turner weren't there, but they are around the facility. We saw them in the locker room, so that was obviously a good sign for him. So look, you're missing a lot of veterans. Taysom Hill was one of the ones that you were expecting not to have just because he's coming off a Les Frank injury. Ryan Ramczyk being around is huge. Obviously, he had off-season knee surgery, so that's another plus. But, you know, look, real interesting looks as well as the Saints had. Tyron Matthew was here. A lot of guys were here and present. So as far as the ebb and flows, I mean, look, you know, this is not like training camp, so you're not having hits and all this kind of craziness, but it is fun to just kind of take in some things. You know, like, for instance, Forrest Lamp was a guy that I saw today. He was at center, and then he was playing at guard. So a lot of cool things that happen in some of those types of nuances that we see in OTAs that might change up a little bit for training camp. And obviously, there's a lot more to pay attention to. But, you know, I really liked, we got to talk to Tyron Matthew afterwards, talked to a lot of players, right? But Tyron Matthew, you know, he's very complimentary of Smoke Monday, talking about how he's got a good future ahead of him, really comes in and studies a lot. Alontae Taylor, praising his football and ball skills, and that's something obviously going to carry next level. So I think that's really a good sign for this team, just to have a good problem of having a depth in the secondary, right? And so Marcus May was around, not practicing, not playing, you know, doing anything right now. Willits was another one that was present but not really participating. You know, they had a handful of guys like that, Eric McCoy, but you know, again, you look at it, it's the first real session that we get to see these players and really just kind of talk to them. You know, I caught up with Tano Passignon in the locker room. Obviously, a disappointing season last year for him. You know, he was on pace to set a career high in sacks, but he's all good now. And so he had an injury, forced on injured reserve. But, you know, look, he's really excited about Tyron Matthew being here. You know, talked to him. He just kind of lit up and just saying, look, he was a leader as soon as he stepped on the field in Casey, and he knows he's going to do that here. And so I think that's obviously a big point for the Saints. And just kind of looking at, you lost Malcolm Jenkins, Sean Payton's not here. There's a lot of players that have left your building, right? And so you're going to need some guys to step up from a veteran perspective. And so, look, again, OTAs, it's just good to see football, right? We haven't been able to see OTAs in 3 years. I mean, you talk about the last 2 seasons, you had COVID. So 2019 is the last time we've had this. So again, some people take it for granted. We don't. We're just happy to be around the players and just be able to see things. You know, as far as some maybe points of the day that you might look at and maybe some takeaways. I thought Pete Werner looked really, really good. He looks like a guy that's really ready to take that next step and working alongside Demario Davis. And, you know, Davis was a guy that wasn't here today, but, you know, again, that's not a big deal. Well, this is the first of 3 sessions, right? So we get 3 weeks of OTAs, and then there's a mandatory mini camp that happens from June 14th to 16th that, you know, we should be able to take part of. And, you know, and look, I would think fans might be able to see a little bit of that too. So stay tuned for that. Expect some good announcements there. But, you know, look, offensive line-wise, Trevor Penning was at left tackle. They didn't have James Hurst. But, you know, you say these players took first-team reps. That really doesn't matter a lot in OTAs. What does matter is just kind of some of the flows, and they're just trying to get some of the basics installed here. And I think that's kind of what you saw today. But, you know, again, it's hard not to notice Lucas Kroll, a guy out of Pitt. making some good plays out there, right? A pass breakup by Caden Ellis. I thought that was a good one. And so there was obviously some good things that happened here. A lot more is going to happen. I think more players are going to get involved and they're going to come back, obviously. But, the big takeaways are Jameis Winston's here. Michael Thomas is not. A little bit concerning on him. Peyton Turner was another one that was not here. Again, like I said earlier, him and Davenport are in the building. They're doing rehab right now. Turner is rehabbing, and then look, Allen had some good things to say about him from a growth and maturity standpoint. So look, it's going to be real fun to see how this team kind of takes shape. I know there's a lot of pressure on somewhat, and a lot of people are sleeping on this team, mainly because they don't know what's going to happen with Jameis Winston. They don't know what Dennis Allen's going to be like. But look, the vibe, the feel around here is the sky's the limit, right? And so again, you look at this team, you see where they are on paper, and there's a lot to look at and there's a lot to love. Look, again, a guy that I like to watch today was Andy Dalton. Again, it's not going to be a quarterback controversy. Please don't take it like that. But again, just seeing him and the veteran that he is coming into the building, just looking kind of crisp. I mean, this guy is a reason why the Saints went and got with a proven veteran backup in case something happens with Jameis, right? And so you don't plan sometimes for these injuries to happen, and they're never a good time for them to happen. But again, it's one of those that you look at this team, you look at how things are shaped up, it makes sense, right? And so this is the first of 3 sessions, right? And so as always, tune to here at Boot Crew Media. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, guys. A lot of good information here. We got to caught up with Jack Collada today. He has some great information that's going to have to come out too. And then obviously follow us on social media. But again, Saints OTAs, they're here. We get a few weeks of this. Then it's mandatory minicamp. We'll have a little bit of things, a kind of a lull. But, training camp's right around the corner. I'm excited to see how this all unfolds. And then we're just a few months away from the season starting. So August 13th against Houston. And we'll get our training camp schedule most likely in mid-July. So, again, John Hendricks here for Boot Crew Media. Thanks again to Royal Honda for producing today's show. Thanks, guys.